Alright, welcome to Visual Basic Module 2. In this module, I have pre-canned an example for you guys. If you've been following along in the book, I think we're at Chapter 3 at this point of the class. Let me get it out and check it out. By the way, if you don't have the book, you should probably get it. So, Chapter 3 is the Introduction to Visual Basic chapter, and it definitely does cover everything that you're going to need to know to complete this exercise. And I've already done the math for you, so all you're going to need to do is create the graphical interface and make a calculate button. So what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the hypotenuse of a triangle. And if you don't know what that is, with a right angle triangle, it is the long side. So the two sides that intersect to make the right angle are your A and B sides. And what we're going to do is calculate the C side. So if you see the function that I've written here, calculate hypotenuse, it accepts a variable A as a double, a variable B as a double, and then it returns a double. And all it does is it returns the square root of the square of both A and B. And if you remember your math classes, the hypotenuse is calculated by a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So if you square root both sides, you have solved for c, which is what we have done. Excuse me. So in my example, you see that I've just hard-coded in two values, 4.1 and 6.42. I should be able to change these to 1 and 2, and the hypotenuse should be 3. Let me put a breakpoint right here when I execute this and switch it over. Now that is slightly off. That is not quite 3. Let me try and figure out what's going on here. .6. Let me double check my math. It's definitely a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And if we do 1 and 2, it is 2.24 according to Google. So I think that's what we had. And it is roughly what we have. It's very close to the answer that we have. Whoa, sorry about that time warp. So this is definitely the correct math that you should be using. The only thing that you have to do is wire it up to an interface. So if you recall in lesson 1 or module 1, we made an interface where we drug out some labels. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to drag out a label for A, you're going to drag out a label for B, then you're going to drag out a numeric text field for A and a numeric text field for B. And Chapter 3 discusses this in a little bit further detail. And what you're going to do is, instead of writing it to a console, you're going to pop up a dialog. So just to show you how helpful the documentation is for Visual Basic, I'm going to say message box. And message box Visual Basic is one of the functions here. So it's just called MSG box. And if you scroll down, you should probably even see examples of it. So you can have message box, the message, null, and then the title. So instead of writing it to a console, I could have a message box, and the message is going to be my calculate hypotenuse, a null argument, and then the title, which is C is solved. Okay. And once I save that and execute it, my program should have a pop-up dialog now. It says C is solved, and there it is. And that's very similar, in fact, if not exactly what your calculate button should do for your program. So again, you're going to have two text fields, or numeric text fields for A, one for B. Make sure they both are doubles. And you're going to have a calculate button The calculate button is going to calculate your hypotenuse. And that is pretty much the end of this lesson. I will post this function as part of the lesson so you guys can copy it if you want. Although it's fairly simple and straightforward. Make sure you've read chapter 3 at this point and performed all of the exercises there. Thank you, and I will see you next time.